So, funny thing is, we start things off here. I'm watching this on the network, and there's this little like WWE network bumper thing that comes up right as the show is starting, and as this is happening, it's this shot from WrestleMania 32 in Dallas, and they're panning through the crowd, and you see the big jumbotron that's hanging above the ring, the big LED screens they have there, and if you look up there, you realize Dean Ambrose's entrance video is playing on that, and it's like, I wonder why they haven't changed that. Like, obviously, I don't know if they could change the video in the bumper bit, but you'd think they would at least change it to a different shot, or even a different match. If they had to have some other point where the cameras were going through the crowd. Anyway, yeah, I watched the 2019 Clash of the Champions. I got to this show later than usual. That's why everything's running the way it is right now. I'll try to, well, I'll try to get this up as soon as I can, but I can't guarantee anything. So let's start off with our two kickoff show matches. The first one is the triple threat match for the Cruiserweight Championship, obviously. It's Drew Gulak versus Lince Dorado versus Humberto Carrillo. Kind of a bog standard Cruiserweight match in this. Like, it wasn't bad, but just not too spectacular. I mean, Gulak, right again, like what he does, right after the bell rings, he immediately runs and hits a drop kick on Carrillo. Both Dorado and Carrillo hit basically a tandem drop kick on Gulak. I mean, one of the big high spots was Lince Dorado doing a flying head scissors off the barricade onto Gulak. Carrillo had some moments too. He basically the really big high point in the match. Gulak had Dorado in the electric chair position, and Carrillo did kind of this somersault plancha over the top rope and took both men out. Another point too, Lince Dorado hit this handspring into the Pele kick. It was actually pretty good. Carrillo hit a missile drop kick. At this point, there was Carrillo put Gulak in a cloverleaf, but then Lince Dorado tried to put on an octopus hold onto Carrillo at the same time, and it didn't quite work because both men, everyone kind of just fell down at that point, and Gulak hit a discus lariat on Carrillo. Carrillo came back on Dorado and set up the Aztec press, but Gulak broke that up and then grabbed Lince Dorado and put him into a bridging waistlock pin for the 3-count victory. Like I said, a match I think that could have been a lot better than it was. Just, I mean, I guess they began to hit a bit of a time crunch, which, yeah, that's something unto itself. Like, maybe again, if you're going to put two matches on the kickoff show for an hour, maybe wait and do the first match like 20 minutes into the show rather than 35. Just a thought. Anyway, our next match is the United States Championship match, AJ Styles versus Cedric Alexander. Don't know why this was bumped to the kickoff show. I mean, there's certainly a few other choices I would have maybe had. For example, the Intercontinental Championship match didn't have any momentum behind it at all. At least this one had a bit more momentum behind it, but even then, I think it was kind of to set the standard for this show. Because, I mean, right off the bat, they start pimping about how, Cedric Alexander's from Charlotte, North Carolina, so, yeah, he's doomed, and then AJ comes out with the OC, so, he's doomed, and they show the highlights of Cedric pinning AJ from the 10-man tag on Raw last week. It's like, again, he's doomed. Though right off the bat, AJ sent the Gallows and Anderson to the back, and right after the bell rings, Cedric managed to catch him in a Michinoku driver, and then he hit a somersault plancha and a handspring drop kick. But after that, Styles basically took over. Styles tripped Alexander on the top rope and hit a brainbuster on the ring apron. Styles hit a Styles Clash to the outside of the ring. Styles got Cedric into the ring again, pinned him, but then picked him up after two. And Cedric came back a little bit, got some offense, fought out of a calf crusher, hit a swinging flatliner, but then Styles came back, hit phenomenal forearm, and Styles Clash for the victory. And Immediately afterwards, Gallus and Anderson returned to the ring and beat up Cedric, and that was all that really was. Like I said, not bad, but especially given the people competing in this, it could have been a lot better. And again, you have the OC beat up Cedric Alexander. That's why I'm screwing this up. But you have him beating up Cedric Alexander, and then like no one comes to his rescue. Like you couldn't have the Viking Raiders come out or something. That would have probably helped a little bit. At least give them something like that. Okay, moving on to the show proper, we open up with the Raw Tag Team Championship match, Seth Rollins and Braun Strowman versus Rudolph. That's Robert Roode and Dolph Ziggler. Right off the bat, Strowman and Roode open things up. Strowman tossed both Roode and Ziggler around a little bit. Rollins got in, did this sort of Irish whip Ziggler into a standing shoulder block from Strowman. At this point, they managed to come back, and Roode distracted the refs, so the heels so Ziggler could get his jumping DDT on Seth Rollins on the outside of the ring. Roode and Ziggler basically isolated Rollins at this point. Roode hit a blockbuster on Rollins. Eventually, Strowman got the hot tag, splashed both Roode and Ziggler in the corner. Roode blind tagged Ziggler and tried to go for a glorious DDT on Strowman, but it didn't work. Rollins did tag in, but then I forget what they were trying to do, but Ziggler broke everything up. And kind of in the shenanigans, Strowman charged after Roode, struck Rollins, who hit the turnbuckle pad. Roode then hit the glorious DDT for the 3 count of the victory. Again, just kind of had some decent moments, but one entirely predictable given how everything was looking. And I think that's the modus operandi for the show overall. Predictable as all get out. Nothing really spectacular happened except for a couple of things which we'll get to. And yeah, this was about as unspectacular as this. And again, out of all the tag teams that were on Raw, the Slapdash team now wins it. I mean, it doesn't exactly fill me with much hope right now. Okay, moving on to the next match. It's the Smackdown Women's Championship match, Bayley versus Charlotte Flair. And yes, they finally turned Bayley heel, so now we have the rare heel versus heel championship match. Right off the bat, as the bell rang, Charlotte hit a big boot on Bayley. Charlotte kind of dominated this one portion of the match. She went after Bayley's knee, tried to go for a figure 4 and the figure 8. Charlotte decked Bayley in the mouth into a suplex. Graves, even though this is heel versus heel, Graves is still, Corey Graves, who's the heel announcer, is firmly on Charlotte's side in this. He's still not digging Bayley in how she's still trying to be, everyone's friend and everything, even though she's clearly very heelish in doing so. Like, oh, hey, you want the Bayley buddies? I mean, she did point out a couple people who were still dressed like her and high-fived them, but other than that, she didn't want to do anything else with the crowd, so some pretty good heel work. Basically, what happened is, as Bayley was selling the knee injury, she managed to untie the turnbuckle pad on the bottom turnbuckle, and then she whipped Charlotte's face into it and got a quick 3 count of the victory, and then hightailed it out. So, predictable again, not good as in what happened, though. I know these two are capable of a better match, and it should have been a much, much better match than that. This really does count as a disappointment in my book. And so let's just go on to the next match from that, and that's the SmackDown Tag Team Championship match, the New Day of Big E and Xavier Woods, obviously, against the Revival. Right off the bat, because Xavier's been selling a knee injury, Scott Dawson immediately tried to cheap shot him, and then Wilder also tried to get a cheap shot in. And Big E got in and hit Wilder with an Uranagi. Wilder, at one point something happened where I didn't quite see what they did, but they did something where they pulled Xavier Woods off the ring apron and threw him into the barricade and knocked him out, and then Wilder hit kind of a jumping lariat and knocked Big E off the ring apron and into the steps, and that allowed the Revival to basically just dominate this match from here on out. I mean, Xavier did get a hot tag at one point. He put Dawson in a head scissors. Wilder got another cheap shot on chop blocked Xavier. He then dodged Big E's attempted spear through the ropes. The Revival hit Big E with the Shatter Machine on the outside of the ring. They got into the ring. They hit Xavier with the Shatter Machine, and then they put him in the inverted figure 4. They ripped off his brace before they did that. And eventually Xavier just tapped out, and the Revival are now Smackdown Tag Team Champions. And again, okay, this was probably one of the few, maybe surprises of the night. Like, they are doing a draft in a few weeks. So, again, we're finally going to have set rosters on this. We're not doing the wild card rule anymore, thankfully. I mean, yeah, technically they did drop the wild card rule a while back, but they really didn't because we've had guys bouncing in between shows. So I guess the Revival are going to be on SmackDown now, or are they going to drop the belts back to the New Day? I don't exactly know what's going on there. But the match in this case, again, not bad, but it was one of the better. I'll say this: it was one of the better matches of the night. Okay, our next match is for the Women's Tag Team Championships. It's Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross against Fire and Desire, a.k.a. Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose. Again, not really much to say here. Not a lot. I mean, there was one kind of thing. Before the match started, we got a backstage interview with Alexa and Nikki, and it turns out that Carmella and R-Truth were operating the boom mic, and Alexa was quite displeased because the boom mic kept dropping down and almost hitting her in the head, so she grabbed it and she said, "Hey, R-Truth's in here with the 24/7 championship, get a ref." And suddenly, like, all the jobbers who were after the 24/7 championship are chasing off after them. And this does pay off later in the match. Early on, Nikki taunted Mandy Rose's attempts at acting seductive and landed a big drop kick. Alexa Bliss tagged in and he had a forearm on Mandy Rose and then a double knee drop. So at this point, the 24/7 championship comes back into play because R-Truth and Carmella hit the ring as they're running through all the jobbers, but they're stopping because they don't want to interfere in the women's championship match. And in the confusion, Alexa actually tried to pin R-Truth and got a 2 count on him. He eventually got out of the ring and they ran off and the match resumed. Sonya blind tagged and then dropped Alexa Bliss. Nikki eventually got tagged in, hit a back suplex on Sonya, and then looked like maybe things were not, like, Nikki set up, I think it was Mandy, no, it was Sonya for a finisher, a team finisher with Alexa, and Alexa got knocked down and fell into the ring, and that enabled Fire and Desire to hit their tag team finisher, but Nikki broke up the pin, and in the confusion, Nikki hit, I think it was Mandy. I think she hit Mandy Rose with her neckbreaker finisher for the 3 count of victory. Again, decent match, probably enlivened a little bit because of the 24/7 shenanigans, but like I said, just very kind of nondescript. And you're going to hear that a lot, and I'm sorry for being so repetitive, but I would just say that it's like, all right, but not spectacular. And that leads us into our next match, the Intercontinental Championship match, Shinsuke Nakamura versus The Miz. Best part of the match so far is Sami Zayn coming out in the neck brace, running down The Undertaker, and giving commentary as the match opened up. Basically, when The Miz did something, he would mock The Miz, and when Nakamura did something, he would praise Nakamura, and finally The Miz got fed up, and he grabbed the microphone, he threw it all the way up to the top of the ramp. As that happened, Nakamura knocked Miz off the apron with a knee strike. Miz countered a knee strike and chop blocked Nakamura. Miz fought out of a cross arm breaker, hit a DDT. Miz dodged a Kinshasa and locked on the figure 4. I think Shinsuke hit the turnbuckle pads. I can't remember if the turnbuckle was the ring post, but Miz knocked on the figure 4, but Nakamura back to the ropes. Zayn tripped up the Miz and allowed Nakamura to hit one Kinshasa, but Miz got to the ropes. And then Miz hit the skull crushing finale. Zayn distracted the ref again, and then enabled Nakamura to hit a knee strike, and then followed it. A knee strike which knocked Miz into the post, and then Nakamura followed it with a Kinshasa for the 3 count of the victory. Definitely one of the better matches on the card. Again, kind of predictable, and unfortunately this is what's kind of held this show back, because there really wasn't anything too horribly surprising in this, except for maybe the Smackdown Tag Team Championship change. Everything else just kind of went the way you thought it was going to go. Except, again, there's maybe one other exception, which we'll get to. Alright, the next match is the Raw Women's Championship match, Becky Lynch versus Sasha Banks. Despite my best efforts to avoid being spoiled on this one, it got spoiled for me. The one time I had to look at my phone and it popped up. Anyway, right off the bat, Becky went for the disarmer. She hit the baseball slide drop kick. Sasha Banks came back and put on kind of an elevated surfboard. She then did the same maneuver, kind of using the top rope for extra leverage. Sasha countered a clothesline into an attempted bank statement. Sasha had 2 Meteoras, one from the second rope. Becky hit a guillotine leg drop. Becky fought out of a roll-up and put on the disarmer, but Sasha got to the ropes. Becky hit a missile drop kick. Sasha hit 2 backstabbers and locked down the bank statement. I think Becky managed to fight out of it into another pin combination. So Sasha got out of the ring, grabbed a chair, threw it into the ring, grabbed another chair so that while the ref was dealing with that, she could catch Becky in the chest with it. But then Becky got a hold of the chair, swung, and hit the ref. At this point, Becky and Sasha fought out into the crowd. They fought up into the stands. Becky did a disarmer through a handrail as they were on the ring riser steps, not the risers, but the crowd. I'm sorry. The steps that lead up into the concession area, basically, as they fought into the concession area, and Becky poured mustard all over Sasha, and they fought back down to the ring, and it's at this point the other refs got in there and disqualified Becky Lynch. So, it was an alright match. Again, unfortunately, the fact that it got spoiled for me kind of left a sour taste in my mouth, so I didn't like this as much as a lot of other people did. It definitely was one of the better this was definitely one of the better matches of the night. And again, kind of felt predictable. I mean, I thought maybe they would put the championship on Sasha, but then again, maybe they can elongate this out and have a Hell in a Cell match between the two, because I think that's what they're building towards. But yeah, like I said, great. I mean, an enjoyable match, but it didn't really do anything too out of the ordinary. And that leads us to our next match, the WWE Championship match, Kofi Kingston versus Randy Orton. One of the funnier bits that happened is as Orton was making his way to the ring during his entrance, he stopped and he noticed there was a kid and his father in the crowd that were both wearing John Cena shirts, and Orton literally looks at him and does the "you can't see me" thing to them. So it was actually kind of a cute little moment. Like, I wonder if he caught that off the top of his head. I came up with that off the top of his head. I mean, Orton, as the match started, he caught Kofi with an elbow. He did a lot. Orton did his kind of typical heelish Randy Orton things. Kofi came back. He caught Orton with a corkscrew elbow after a couple of leapfrogs. Orton hit a thumb to the eye. He knocked Kofi off the ring apron into the barricade. They fought and attacked the announce tables as this was happening, and Kofi landed a springboard dropkick. Orton threw him into the ring post. Kofi came back, managed to hit a flying chop. He attempted a Trouble in Paradise. Orton countered that into his backbreaker. Kofi countered a clothesline into an SOS. Orton came back and hit his snap power slam. He hit his hangman DDT. He went for the RKO, but Kofi was too close to the ropes to try and pin. Okay, yes, I'm blanking again, sorry. And again, Orton went for the punt kick. Kofi dodged that and hit the Trouble in Paradise for the 3 count of the victory. this match was really slow and padded out. I wish they had maybe tightened this up. Like, again, maybe extend the SmackDown Women's Championship match out a little bit and take some time away from this one, because I think both of those could have used what I just said. Both could have used that, because I think it would have really helped. Again, nothing too spectacular though, again, and they're probably going to build towards a match at Hell in a Cell between these two, because it just doesn't feel like it's over yet. Okay, our next match is the no disqualification match between Eric Rowan and Roman Reigns. Right off the bat, they started fighting on the ramp. They fought all over the ring. Reigns dodged a charging Rowan, who hit the ring steps. Rowan countered a spear with a big charging elbow strike. Rowan then picked up the ring steps and hit Reigns with it. They fought back and forth. Reigns hit his drive-by drop kick. Rowan came back with a crossbody on the outside of the ring. Rowan hit a big splash, and then followed that with a corkscrew elbow from the second rope. At one point, they were fighting, and they were on the side of the ring with a big LED board on it. And on the ring apron, there's a little bit of padding to kind of compensate for the board being there, rather than the little drop skirt that they usually have, that you would think would be there. And Orton managed to peel away some of that padding, and then he suplexed Reigns onto it. Reigns came back in a Samoan drop. Rowan had set up the ring steps for something, and I can't remember what it was, but Reigns actually grabbed it and almost looked like he was going to do the Samoan drop onto the ring steps. Thankfully he didn't, because that really wouldn't have worked. They were not set up in a good position to do something like that. So he just did it to the side of the ring steps, basically. They fought out into the crowd. Reigns landed a Superman punch. Rowan powerbombed Reigns through the Raw announce table. Rowan came into his claw, and as I said, they fought in the crowd. Rowan hit a claw slam through a table. Reigns began to fight back. He caught Rowan with a tripod. He hit a couple of big Superman punches. He hit him with the big swinging camera stand, like what Rowan did on Smackdown. Rowan started to fight his way back to the ring, and Reigns set up for a big charging spear, and then that's when Luke Harper hopped out of the crowd and hit Reigns with a big boot, and then both Bludgeon Brothers beat up on Reigns and eventually pinned him, so that Rowan pinned him to win the match not too long after that. Daniel Bryan was not involved in this, although, again, I wouldn't be surprised if eventually he is involved in this. Again, big surprise seeing Harper back. He was at WrestleMania and then again just sort of vanished, never to be heard from again. And I think this does add an interesting dynamic now, because, with the team of Harper and Rowan, it was always the idea that Harper was kind of more of the brains of, he was more of the mouthpiece and always seemed to be more the guiding force, and now it's like Rowan's the guiding force. So there could actually be a unique dynamic in all this. Like, I think they referenced the idea of them being the Bludgeon Brothers once, and it doesn't seem like it's ever come up. It didn't come up after that, but hey, if they just go back to being Harper and Rowan, I'd be fine with that. Overall, I'd say the match itself was, again, a little too padded out. Like the brawling in the crowd was fine when it's like when one match does it. When it happens in like 4 matches, it starts to lose a lot of its specialness. And yeah, again, some decent spots in this. This is one where I think maybe again, like, we didn't need the Sasha and Becky brawling into the crowd bit, and this wasn't a false count anywhere match. It was just no DQ, so you guys still get back to the ring to pin your opponent, and that I think added just a little bit of clunkiness to it. And the high point is of course Harper's return. That's just the big thing that anyone's really going to take away from this. And so you might as well just move on to the main event, because that's our last. Well, you get the idea. I'm tired. I'm sorry. It's the Universal Championship match: Seth Rollins versus Braun Strowman. Right off the bat, I guess after their tag match, there was one thing I didn't quite mention, which is first Braun kind of looked a little apologetic to Seth, and he went up to the top of the ramp, but then Immediately when they went backstage, Strowman blamed Seth for them losing the championship, so not sure what that was all about. I guess maybe it had some more tension to this match, but right off the bat, Strowman plowed over Rollins and then hit 2 corner splashes. But Rollins came back, he hit 3 super kicks, he hit a frog splash, Strowman only kicked out at 1. Braun threw Seth across the ring a couple of times. Seth came back and hit some flying knees. Strowman chokeslammed Rollins, Rollins dodged Strowman, who crashed into the announce table again. At one point, Seth managed to get Roman lying on the prone on the on the Spanish announce table, and Rollins climbed up, but then he's going to do like a frog splash or something, but Strowman got up and threw Rollins off the turnbuckle, and then Strowman himself got up on the top turnbuckle and hit a top rope splash. But Strowman landed in such a way that his knees actually took most of the brunt, and he wasn't able to cover Rollins in time. Rollins got back, he hit a curb stomp, Strowman kicked out at 1. Rollins hit a second curb stomp, Strowman kicked out at 2. He hit a third curb stomp, but Strowman again got up, managed to fight out, put Rollins up for the running power slam, but Rollins fought out, hit a pedigree, followed that with a curb stomp for the 3 count and the victory. Kind of the high impact car crash type match. Again, this one was really predictable. Like, good, not bad, just, again, nothing truly extraordinary, nothing surprising, nothing that really made me think, oh, are they actually going to have Braun Strowman win this? Nothing, like I said, just none of that. And that was really the error overall of the show. And, oh, of course, I forget to mention, as the show is going off the air, of course, the lights go out, and the Fiend arrives again, and he hits Sister Abigail on Rollins, who's at the top of the ramp, and then he puts Rollins in the mandible claw, and the whole time you just hear the Fiend laughing over and over again on the loudspeaker, and then it just fades to black. So, definitely, again, not too surprising, because they already had Bray Wyatt challenge at Hell in a Cell, so you knew he was going to make a statement there to have that happen. But, like I said, again, this whole show just had this really big air of predictability to it. Like, the matches weren't bad, they just weren't, like, again, the only one I could truly consider to be out surprising is that the Smackdown Tag Team Championships changed hands. Other than that, again, everything just kind of felt like, yeah, that's what I thought was going to happen. I mean, it's just a level of expectations met. Not bad, just not great. I'm trying to think of one other thing I wanted to say about this, and it's slipping my mind right now. I'm tired. Sorry again, but yeah, like I said, the show is going to get a C. It was just very average to me. It wasn't that spectacular. Hopefully Hell in a Cell in a few weeks can liven this back up. Oh, the King of the Ring finals, I thought they announced that they were going to be on Clash of Champions, but no, for some reason they're on Raw tonight, Monday morning, as I'm recording this. Anyway, the next wrestling review after this is going to be NXT's live debut on USA. I have the schedule written on one of these pages here. So after that, we have AEW's debut on TNT, which is on the 2nd. Hell in a Cell is on October 6th. And then I'll cover the Raw and SmackDown drafts just because why not at this point? I mean, I'm covering just about everything else. AEW's not going to be a weekly thing. I'll try to watch it if I can, but Wednesday's sometimes just not that great a day for me. Sorry. Yeah, so that's kind of the next bit of wrestling coverage. Next movie's going to be Rambo Last Blood, and then after that it's Abominable. And in between that, we have the Random Trade review on Outsiders Volume 1. I'm going to try to get this edited and rendered up as quickly as I can, and then I need to take a good long nap. See you all next time. Guys, are you tired of me constantly talking only about WWE and NXT? Want to see me expand my wrestling coverage? Check out my Patreon at Sleepy Time for Cat Productions. Also, remember, if you like the video, give it a like, share, subscribe, and ring that notification bell.